All right, so today we're going to talk about the formula of a straight line. So a straight line has this basic formula like this. So what we have is generally we have the y and x axes, and then we'll have a straight line that's going through. So what it always has is, say it has this pattern where the rule is like y equals, and it'll have a number, which is actually the gradient, so 2x, and then plus 4. So we've had a look at this, and we know that the number in front of x here, that one is the gradient. And now we're going to also look at, say, this number here, that is the y-intercept, that one. So that tells us the y-intercept. So up here, see how this 4, so we know that it's crossing at 4. That's the y-intercept there, okay? So when you have a straight line, it will always sort of have a version of this sort of set out. So it'll have y equals, and m is the gradient, and the c value, it can be plus or it could be minus, could be the y-intercept. So for example, if you have, say this is your axis, and if your straight line like crosses down here, say that's -2, that equation might look like y equals 4x minus 2. So you can see that this bit is the y-intercept, and you can see that's where it crosses down there, okay? Now, we also might need to find out, so if we're going to get given lines and we're going to ask to find the rule for it, so we may need to use this rule, m equals rise over run, to find that m value when we're trying to work out the rule. So let's go do a couple of things. All right, so it's asking me up here to find the equation of the line for the diagram. So you can see that the line, they're all straight lines. So as soon as they say you've got to find the equation, you know it's going to be this pattern where we're going to have y equals something like that. All right, so under each one, we'll start off by doing that. First, we'll say y equals mx plus c. So we know that this value is the y-intercept. So if that's the y-intercept, we can go and look at the graph. And where does it cut the y? At +4. So now, at the moment, I could write this equation, and I know that c is actually 4. So the other one I need to work out, so I can write it, is I need to work out m. So if you remember, we've got that rule for m where we can use y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So I could use that rule as well, and I'm going to use that rule. Up here, I'm going to say this point is 0, 4, and over here I'm going to say this point is -2, 0. So I could use this as x1, y1, x2, y2. So let's go find, I'll go down and do it down here. Let's find what m equals. So my y2 is 4 minus y1, which is 0. And x2 is 0 minus x1, which is a -2. So remember that minus on a minus becomes a positive. So I end up the gradient is 2. So I can finally write the formula for this straight line, and it'll be y equals 2x plus 4. Okay, so this was the m, and this was that c value, the y-intercept. All right, let's go and do the next one. So up here, we've got, we'll write the formula. We can see it's a straight line, so it's going to be y, something like this, y equals mx plus c. What is the y-intercept here on this graph, guys? Who can tell me? What one is it? Where does it cross the y line? Because that's going to tell me this value. What's the y-intercept? Anyone?
4.
4, thank you. So we're going to have y equals mx plus 4, because I can see that this is the c value. Okay, and now I'm going to use, now this time I might use to find the gradient, I'm just going to do rise over run, because we've done that method as well, where you go from one dot. So I might go from this dot and I go down a rise of -4, so that'd be -4 because I went from 4 to 0, and then I go across, this is the negative rise, and then I go across a run of 4. So the gradient for this one is -1. So now I can write this equation out as y equals negative x, or we can write -1x plus 4. And there's the equation for that line. All right, and let's do this last one. Now I'm going to use this, see how it's crossing through the 0, so I'll call that another point, because what I'm going to do, I'll do the x1, x2, y2. I'll find my gradient first using that formula, the y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So y2 for me was 0 minus 7 over 0 minus 1. So I get -7 on -1, so that's 7. So that's what m is. I can read off that the y-intercept is 0. So this one's equation would be y equals 7x plus 0, but we don't really need the 0. So we can just rub that out, and this one's actually y equals 7x. For the line joining the pairs of points, find the gradient, and then part 2 was find the equation of the line. So we'll go and do this first one. So for the first one, the gradient, I'm going to use this formula, particularly because they've given me 2 points. So I'll call this x1 y1 and x2 y2. So the gradient will be 7 minus 0 over 1 minus 0. So this one's 7. So, and now because I've got to find the equation, so remember that the equation always looks like y equals mx plus c. So you now know what the m is. So at the moment, I know it's 7x plus c. So this is a case where we can't read off what the c value is because the gradient, because the graph's not there. So what we're going to do is, to find what c is, we're going to use one of the points. So I'm going to use the 0, 0. And what you do is you pop it into this equation. So this means x and this is y. So I pop it, every time I see y, I'll put a 0. And every time I see x, I'm going to put a 0 plus c. So you end up being that 0 equals c, because if you multiply them out. So I know now what c is, but it's actually 0. So this equation is going to be y equals 7x, like that. All right, so let's have a go at this. We'll do it again over here at the other one. So we could do it like that, but also we can see it again. It's passing through 0, 0. So if you quickly thought about the graph of this equation, what it's actually doing, it's passing through there, the 0, 0. So that means that's where it's crossing the y-intercept. So we can say that c equals 0 again. All right, so this one, let's just find the gradient first. x2 minus x1. So I'll call that x1, y1, x2, y2. So it'll equal -3 minus 0 over 2 minus 0. So I end up with -3 on 2. That's the gradient. So I just have to write the equation. You just leave it in fraction and you just write that. So that's the number in front of x, the m. And then we know, once again, because it was going through 0, 0, that the C is 0. So you don't need to write +0. So there's that one. Okay.